A very warm welcome to part 5 of the special mapping series for the preliminary exam 2025. Our first entry for part 5 brings us back to Antarctica. Mount Erebus and Deception Island are the two active volcanoes in Antarctica. Mount Erebus was in the news recently. Why? Because it was mentioned that this volcano, while it is erupting, it is emitting a lot of gold dust along with it as well. We are all aware about isostatic rebound. This entire area was under tremendous pressure of ice during the last ice age. Therefore, the rocks under it were highly compressed. For the last 11,700 years, the pressure is being removed. The rocks below Antarctica are no longer under that pressure. It is easier for those rocks to now melt. Therefore, we are finding active volcanism even in Antarctica. Mount Erebus was in the news, because of which Deception Island also becomes important. Both of them are active volcanoes of Antarctica. The second entry takes us to Mexico, Tamya Blue Hole. Technically, it is called Tamya Blue Hole. It is basically a submerged sinkhole. We are all aware that this Central American part is made up of karst topography limestone, and on those limestones we see sinkholes forming. And for the last 11,700 years, the sea levels have been rising after the end of the ice age. Therefore, most of the sinkholes have submerged. Seawater contains that bluish texture due to all of these iron minerals present in it as well. Therefore, on the stark white contrasting background of a limestone sinkhole, once you have that water, it gives that appearance of a dark blue hole. It is the deepest blue hole that has been discovered. It lies in the Chetumal Bay. It has surpassed the earlier record holder, which was the Dragon Hole of southern China in the South China Sea, right? The name Tamya Blue Hole, it is derived from the Mayan phrase deep water, and from the sea level it extends to a depth of more than 420 meters. Underwater, basically submerged sinkhole, right? Our next entry is Kodaikanal Solar Observatory. It recently completed 125 years. Very important. Now, the origin of this observatory is linked to the Great Drought of 1876 till 1878. It was one of the deadliest climatic disasters, right? It induced a famine, which forced a scientific inquiry to take place with respect to the connection of climate and the sun, right? The solar cycle, how is it affecting the climate on Earth? Why is it affecting the, you can say, rainfall on Earth? Therefore, a solar observatory was established. The Kodaikanal Solar Observatory was founded in 1899 after the investigations. It merged with the Madras Observatory, and it recently celebrated 125 years of the solar studies, and it began operations in 1901 under the IMD. Right? Its location was selected due to the clear skies in Tamil Nadu in Kodaikanal. Right? The foundations were laid by the Scottish physicist Charles Smith. Certain key discoveries are associated with this observatory: the Evershed effect, the helium discovery, and it has detailed solar images, over 1.48 lakh images since 1901, which are critical for analyzing the solar cycle. This becomes even more important due to India's Aditya L1 as well. Both of them combined are going to study the sun, which is very important. Why? Because right now the sun is in the middle of its solar cycle, maximum coronal mass ejections, and the Earth's magnetic field is also weakening because it appears as if a magnetic pole reversal has just begun. Therefore, Kodaikanal Observatory and Aditya L1, along with NASA's Parker Solar Probe, all of these are important for current affairs, therefore important for the exam. Right? Our next entry takes us to Ladakh. Parkachik Glacier on the Suru River Valley. Right? It is in Ladakh. It is melting at an alarming rate, and it has been published in a research which was again reflected in the PIB as well, that it appears that this melting glacier will lead to not one but three glacial lake formations, right? The institution leading the study is the Vadia Institute of Himalayan Geology. We keep referring this institution, headquarters at Dehradun, right? It is the premier institute of Himalayan Geology, right? It analyzed the morphological and dynamic changes of the Parkachik Glacier on the Suru River Valley of Ladakh, and the findings were published in the journal Annals of Geology, right? The results revealed that the glacier retreat varied between 1971 and 2021, but remote sensing data showed that it retreated on average 2 meters per annum between 1971 and 1999, whereas the rate of retreat accelerated from 2 meters per annum to 12 meters per annum between 1999 and 2021. Suddenly there has been a burst of glacial retreat. We are all aware about the flash droughts under the high pressure belt, the melting third pole, all of this is linked to it as well, right? Furthermore, it is suggested that the glacier retreated at a rate of 20 meters per annum between 2015 and 2021. Therefore, the rate at which it is retreating is substantially increasing, and it is going to lead to not one but three glacial lakes at its snout. Our next entry takes us to Assam, right? Deopar. A landmark decision was taken where the Numaligarh refinery began demolishing its boundary wall, right, which had restricted an elephant corridor in Deopar's reserve forest in the Golaghat district of Assam, right? It began with the NGT decision and the High Court decision, right? It is a public sector oil company with a joint venture with BP and Oil India Limited. And the boundary wall, the demolition of the boundary wall began after the Guwahati High Court upheld the decision of the NGT, which had passed a decision in 2016. It had ordered the demolition of the wall. Why? Because they had constructed a boundary wall in an elephant corridor, which was more than, you can say, 2 kilometers long, and they also leveled a hill to construct a golf course over it. And they have been directed to pay a sum of 25 lakhs because they fell a lot of trees, they blocked the elephant corridor, and they literally built a golf course in that area as well. Therefore, it was in the news. Our next entry brings us to Karnataka, Kayasnur Forest. Due to the alarming rate of global warming, new diseases are emerging in all of this humid area as well. In Kayasnur, the Kayasnur forest disease, it is a tick-borne viral illness, right? It is creating havoc in the Malenadu region of Karnataka. It is spreading to the neighboring areas as well, right? Deficit rainfall and intense heat in the southern states. We have been talking about this, that how peninsular India has been facing repeated droughts for the last 4 years, and this is how it is culminating in. Therefore, the region, this area becomes important, right? Zootonic means animal, starting from animals, right? Our next entry is the Brant Line. You all must be familiar with the term Global South. India talks about itself being as the leader, representative of the Global South. What do you mean by the Global South? Now, there was a former West German Chancellor, called Willy Brandt. He basically divided the world into rich and poor countries and he marked a boundary between them. Global North represent the rich nations, Global South not the rich ones, basically poor ones, and basically they're technically not in the southern hemisphere, but it is just that divide line between that GDP of countries and this line which separates the, you can say, kind of developed and developing, although it is not perfectly correct because Middle Eastern nations are, you can say, they have a very well standard of living and GDP as well. But more or less this was that imaginary line which was just to bifurcate the GDP per capita, right? Towards the end of the Cold War, the term third world was preferred not to be used because it was highly demeaning. Therefore, after this thing, third world, the term global south was preferred because it was apparently less derogatory to call global south. So basically all these countries which are less GDP per capita, they are termed as the global south, right? Iran has been in the news and UPSC loves to ask questions on these things. Therefore, let's talk about the names of Iran's different proxy groups and in which country they operate in. Right? We are all aware about these names. Let's associate, match the following. Hezbollah, again, all of these are pro-Iranian proxy groups operating in different countries. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Palestine, Houthis of Yemen, Al-Ashtar Brigade in Bahrain, Islamic Resistance, Iraq, Syrian government, Assad regime, again in Syria. You can expect this in match the following for UPSC as well. I have added more detail with each one of them as well. Coming to the last entry for part 5 is the Kanwar Lake, right? It is Bihar's first Ramsar site. Bihar's first Ramsar site. Last year, 2 more Ramsar sites were added in Bihar. Now there are 3 Ramsar sites in Bihar. This one is the first Ramsar site of Bihar. This one is the largest freshwater oxbow lake in Asia. The meander was of the river Budi Gandak. Now, as we are all aware, an oxbow lake will eventually dry out. But the rate of drying of this lake has been aggravated due to flash droughts. It is right under that high pressure belt area. And as a result, most of this is drying rapidly and all the migratory birds that used to visit it have reduced significantly. In the last 3 to 4 decades, it used to spread more than 6 to 7,000 hectares and it became the largest hub of migratory birds. But over the years, it has been drying rapidly and last year during the summers, only around 1,000 birds were spotted in this lake. That is how severe the situation has become. People dependent on these lakes for fishing are also facing a lot of, you can say, hardships. So that is all for part 5 of the mapping series of 2025. Stay tuned for further parts. Thank you.